Hello, and welcome to Movie Land. For this video, we're going to be talking about the top 5 episodes made of the Blue Thunder TV show. Blue Thunder was a TV show that aired on the ABC network in 1984. It starred James Farentino, Dana Carvey, Bubba Smith, and Dick Butkus. And it was loosely based on the 1983 film Blue Thunder, which was a pretty big box office hit. When the show debuted in 1984, it kind of got a mixed reaction. A lot of fans of the movie were a little disappointed because it didn't stay dark and gritty like the R-rated film. When they adapted it for network television, they lightened the tone quite a bit, and it actually was more or less a clone of the biggest hit TV show of 1983, which is The A-Team. So if you go into the show realizing it's just escapist fun and not serious whatsoever, just about everyone I've shown this TV show to people, almost everybody's had a positive reaction. Although most of my friends were also big fans of 1980s TV shows and especially fans of The A-Team. So if you've grown up kind of with that mindset, it's just a great show to watch. I know when Blue Thunder aired on TV, it was kind of overshadowed by Airwolf, but I actually think Blue Thunder has actually aged better than Airwolf. Airwolf is a great example of a show that probably went one, probably 2 seasons past when it should have. They kept reducing the budget on that show to where by the 4th season that was made for the USA Network, they didn't even have a flying helicopter. You know, it was all stock footage from previous seasons, and it's just such an awful show to watch. That last season is, oh my god, terrible. And in my opinion, I think Blue Thunder got cut too short. It really deserved at least 2 seasons of the show. The action sequences were amazing. And the chemistry between the characters, especially with Dick Butkus and Bubba Smith, it's just a lot of fun to watch. I mean, they were definitely the comic relief in the show, and it worked well most of the time. So I really am kind of sad that this didn't get a season 2. Okay, so now here are my top 5 best episodes of Blue Thunder. So I'm going to name them from worst to first. Number 5. Arms Race. In this episode, the Blue Thunder team is tasked with apprehending an illegal arms dealer. One of the things you'll quickly notice about this TV show is they always flew real aircraft. Airwolf had a tendency to use a lot of stock footage from the 1960s, like military planes and everything. So most of the time, Airwolf was shooting down footage that looked considerably older than 1984. I always hated, those episodes where, he was shooting down a MiG and you could tell they were using like 20-year-old footage. So Blue Thunder never did that. However, there were a couple episodes where they lifted stock footage from the film. I hated the sequences that were stock footage on both Airwolf and Blue Thunder, and I automatically excluded all the episodes that pulled action sequences from the film from my top 5 list. So none of the pilot episode and the episode Godchild were especially egregious. Those type of episodes I automatically excluded from my list. This episode really was great. There was a very memorable villain named Harold Longstreet. He had so much swagger and charisma. It was a very dynamic character. They really did pull out all the stops on the stunt work for this episode too. There's this incredible sequence where Bubba Smith is actually kidnapped and put in a crop duster plane that's remotely controlled, and he has to be rescued before the plane crashes. And he actually, the stuntman, I should say, the stuntman steps up onto the wing of the plane and jumps onto the helicopter skids of Blue Thunder. And then once again, they catch up to Longstreet trying to escape in a Jeep, and Bubba's character jumps off the helicopter skids into the back of a moving Jeep. So those were the type of elaborate action sequences that this show was known for, and those constant budget overruns on the action sequences is clearly what killed the show. It appears the execs at ABC were trying to give NBC a run for their money, with the A-Team, and the action sequences definitely rivaled the A-Team on this show, and just incredible stunt work throughout, and they just don't make TV shows like this anymore. So my pick for the 4th best episode of Blue Thunder is Clipped Wings. So in this episode, the pilot of Blue Thunder, Frank Chaney, gets blamed for a near plane crash. He basically crosses paths with another helicopter and flies over the other helicopter and causes like a downdraft. And the other helicopter almost crashes. And like I said, Chaney gets blamed for it, even though the incident turns out to have been staged all along, and it was really just a ploy to get Chaney out of the Blue Thunder and put a replacement pilot in Blue Thunder and use the helicopter for nefarious purposes. This was a fun episode, lots of great action. The actor who played the villain, his character's name was Anson. He's just such a dick. He's got the creepy villain down, and he's definitely one of the more memorable villains of this particular show. But this show had a lot of great villains. I mean, the character actors they brought in were all very accomplished. You have to understand that the Blue Thunder TV show was produced by the same executive producer that produced like the 1960s The Fugitive show. So they knew a lot of great people working in the industry, and the action sequences were really well polished, and they got a lot of really good supporting characters in the show. This episode also really let Dana Carvey's character, who played Wonderlove, have a large role, because he actually knocks the villain unconscious who's piloting Blue Thunder. So Dana Carvey's character, Wonderlove, has to actually land Blue Thunder. And like I said, that was kind of an expanded role. He was usually kind of the sidekick in most of the storylines, just there for comic relief. But this particular episode was a great opportunity for his character to kind of take a lead for the storyline. This one's just a fun episode from start to finish. So the number 3 best episode of Blue Thunder is A Clear and Present Danger. In this episode, the Blue Thunder team had to take on a paramilitary group that was actually committing bank heists to fund their insurrectionist war against the United States. The guest stars on this episode were quite memorable for me. As someone who grew up with Knight Rider, and one of my favorite episodes from Knight Rider is Junkyard Dog. Raymond Barry was the actor who played John Byrock, the villain in Knight Rider. He actually shows up as one of the 2 villains of this particular episode on Blue Thunder. Another great character actor that showed up in this episode, who played Sheriff Tenney, was Jeffrey Lewis. This episode just had an amazing lineup of guest stars. There were some really good action sequences. The climax is set at the Queen Mary in Long Beach. And what's nice about this particular action sequence is not only does the Blue Thunder helicopter get to dogfight, the mobile unit, which was known as Rolling Thunder, also had a pretty large role in this particular action sequence. So it was kind of neat to see some of the features of Rolling Thunder being used to wrap up this particular episode. I also think this episode had one of the best openings for the show. The bank heist, where they actually have an old World War II fighter dive bomb the street and take out a cop car. I mean, that's a pretty elaborate stunt for a TV show. You're never going to see that kind of stuff nowadays done practically. It would all have been CGI if it was a TV show made today. But they did this all with real airplanes and real pyrotechnics on the cop car. And, the way they directed the scenes was pretty amazing. And the fact that they could frame up cop car and the airplane in the same shots, whoever did the camera work was amazing. Number 2, The Long Flight. So this episode reminded me a lot of the James Bond film License to Kill. In this episode, a drug dealer from Mexico kidnaps Captain Braddock's daughter. For the ransom, he wants to exchange his daughter for the Blue Thunder helicopter, which makes a lot of sense because if you're going to smuggle drugs across the border, having an unstoppable gunship is probably not a bad way to do it. The reason why this episode reminded me so much of License to Kill is the Blue Thunder team kind of goes AWOL to cross the border and ignore their jurisdiction and, basically go back and rescue Braddock's daughter. I absolutely love this episode. Lots of great action. The actor Paul Kozlo shows up as a henchman, and For somebody who grew up watching that campy sci-fi movie Robot Jox, it was great to see him play like one of the baddies in this one. Braddock's daughter was actually played by Kelly Preston, and for those who aren't aware of it, she had a pretty big film career and got married to John Travolta. The role that she's probably best remembered for is she was in the comedy Twins with Danny DeVito and Arnold Schwarzenegger. And she's a trooper in this particular episode. I think she did a lot of her own stunts. You know, she's running through this murky water and the mud and the swamps and everything, and she gave it her all. It's wild to me that back in the 1980s, it was kind of the Wild West, and they let a lot of the actors do their own stunts in a lot of these type of sequences. I mean, this sketchy stuff would probably get most people hurt nowadays. Pretty much all but 2 episodes of Blue Thunder were set in Los Angeles, so it was great for this episode to change the venue, and I think that's kind of why this episode felt so fresh to me. And like I said, it's the only episode where the Blue Thunder team goes AWOL, so just a nice departure from the other episodes. And the best episode of Blue Thunder, in my opinion, is Revenge in the Sky. So these vehicle shows, whether you're talking about Viper, or Knight Rider, or Blue Thunder, they thrive when the vehicular adversary is really good. Let's face it, a show like Airwolf or Blue Thunder, people are watching the show for the dogfights. They want to see 2 aircraft engage and just go toe-to-toe in an amazing fight in the air. I think Revenge in the Sky had the best aerial sequences filmed for the TV show. I think they were just about as good as what they had produced for the big budget movie a year prior. For this episode, they rented an F-86 Sabre, and it is probably the most impressive aircraft that they featured in the TV series. It was pretty much the only fighter jet. You know, most of the time, Blue Thunder was pitted up against helicopters and prop planes, but this is the one time it faced off against a fighter jet, and like I said, the action sequences were incredible, and if you love the F-86 Sabre like I do, it gets a lot of screen time in this episode, and that in itself is a feat, because they probably used up all their TV budget making this one episode, because the F-86 is in a lot of it. So the storyline for this episode was pretty straightforward. Somebody stole the F-86 aircraft, and Blue Thunder team is tasked with searching out and destroying it. I also did find that this was one of the better written episodes of the TV series. There's some pretty cool plot twists, and it turns out that the government official that's running the whole operation ends up being a double agent working for the KGB. And it's all an elaborate ruse to try to shoot down a commercial airliner and blame Blue Thunder for it. But this show was a product of the 1980s, and Blue Thunder team pretty much was successful in 100% of the episodes, and always had a happy ending by the epilogue. Well, thanks for watching my top 5 episodes of Blue Thunder. If you enjoyed this episode of Movie Land, don't forget to like and subscribe.